Hello guys and dolls, welcome back to Honey Badger 3D Print and Paint. Today we're looking at the Uniformation GKTwo and the little wash station. Before we get started, roll those credits. Okay, so the Uniformation GK2. This is a 10.3 inch printer, which means it has, and bear me 1 second, a 228 by 128 by 245 millimeter build volume. It's a medium to large size printer for the consumer level. And we also have here the wash station. We'll get to that in a minute. So this sits at the slightly higher end of the consumer market price-wise. This is £744.35 currently on the Uniformation website. I'll drop a link in the video description. Full disclosure, before we get into any of the features and everything else of the machine, this machine was sent to us by Uniformation for the purposes of this review. We were not paid to do the review. The opinions that we express in this are our own. Uniformation do not have editorial rights, so just so you are aware, we do love this machine, but we love it. We're not being told to love it. Right, so this is a 10.3 inch 8K resin printer. And when we did our review of the Jaish NC Pegasus, we said that that was the resin printer that made us fall in love with resin printing again. This is the machine that has made us realise how easy resin printing should be. So there's some great features inside of this machine. So let's have a look inside. As you can see, it's an up and over design on the lid. The lid does not come back any further than the rear of the machine, but obviously it does come up quite a bit higher, so it's just something to bear in mind when you are dealing with when you're sort of, if you've got any of these in a print farm or if you've got a specific space, that does need a little bit of clearance to be able to do that. Some of the features that they've put into this are features that I expect to see on every resin printer moving forwards. That is where the bar is set. This machine has set the bar. So let me be clear. First and foremost, you have a carbon activated filter. This filter is changeable, and all you need to do is it goes on the back of the machine. It attaches with magnets in the back. We'll show you that in a second. And it works really, really well. When this machine is printing and this hood is down, you cannot smell anything. Secondly, this is how you release the build plate, which means that if you're like me and you're the kind of moron who on multiple occasions has forgotten to screw down the build plate, you now can't do that, because when you close this machine, it will hit that and stop. And all you need to do is clip that back down, and you know that that's going to work. You flip that up and the build plate slides out nice and easily. This is all about toolless design. Okay, so the vat is in here very securely, but all you need to do is pull that vat forwards, lift it out, and the vat comes out nice and simple. It is a sliding in design that locks into place once it goes in. It also has an overspill area. So you fill this vat up with 700 millilitres of resin. I would have liked that to have been a litre, just so that I can put a full bottle in and I know that it's a full bottle. I don't really know why, because they could have very easily just made this a bit taller. I don't really know why they chose 700 millilitres. Seems like a somewhat odd number, but fine, whatever. So you fill it up to the fill line, and then when the build plate goes in, it pushes the resin up and it goes into this overflow area here, meaning you don't have to worry about spills unless you absolutely massively overfill the tank. So that's really good. We'll take a look at this machine on in a second, because this touchscreen is one of the best touchscreens I've used. For a start, it's larger than most people's resin printers, so that's amazing. But as well, it's a really clear, easy to use UI. The screen is tilted backwards slightly, and there's a slight lip just here, so that if you are the kind of person who spills resin, it doesn't go straight onto your screen. It sort of drips down the bottom there. I've done it, I've cleaned it. It's also fine. Finally, somebody put the USB port and the power button on the front, where I am. Not round the back, where there's probably spiders. I don't have to reach around and give this some horrible little tickly job where I've got to try and turn this on from the back with the power button. I don't have to do that anymore, because like a regular person, this is on the front, where it should be. Stop putting it on the side and round the back. I need to turn this machine on and off, and I don't have the ability to run around it or put it on a turntable. So all designers who keep doing that, stop it. It's terrible. We all hate it. Next, we've also got the fact that this is a heated build enclosure. So it's not a heated vat, but it is a heated build enclosure. We've found, to be fair, that this turns on, it sets its own temperature. You can set the temperature in the screen. We've had it in our workshop. The temperature in there doesn't really drop much below 15 degrees because we're always printing. But when the lid is closed and the machine is on, you will have the heater kick in regardless of whether or not you're printing. So it's just something to bear in mind, that because the power button is on the front and easy to use, I recommend that you use it. When you're not printing, turn the machine off. You won't be worrying about heating a space that you do not need to. If you turn the machine on a couple of minutes before you're about to start printing, whilst you go away and do your slicing, then you'll have a heated, nice and stable temperature inside of this chamber that it will also heat whilst you're printing as well. I have checked the power draw on my smart meter. It doesn't seem to cost much more, about a penny an hour more to run this when the heater's on, rather than running it without the heater. But it doesn't seem to be a big deal. I think that's it on the features. So let's talk slicers. Okay, so this is the slicer from Uniformation. As you can see, it's a reskinned version of Prusa Slicer. All the features that you need are in there, so you can perform cuts inside of the slicer. Do anything you need there. You can hollow out your prints. You can add your supports in as you want to. All your print settings are in here. So this is where I had to play about a fair amount with the support settings that I had. I was having real issues with surface scarring, so I had to change head penetration, and I also had to change the support density. So I went up to 500 for that, and I went to 0.15 for this. That seems to have made the difference that I needed it to. Over in material settings, my initial layer height is 0.1. You can see my exposure time here is 1.9. I found that to be really good, and my burn-in layers are at 25. And then these are just the settings for this particular printer. Again, this is the GK2 profile that they gave me, so I haven't touched any of this stuff. This is everything that was in there already. And then you can come back into here, and it's a pretty easy slicer to use. If you've used Prusa Slicer, then you will have then you'll know what this is like. I have used CheeToBox with this machine, and I have to say I've had much better results with their slicer than I did with CheeToBox. So even though my CheeToBox is dialed in pretty well, this one seems to have a few more features in it, like being able to cut inside of the program rather than having to go anywhere else. So if you get yourself a GK2, I would highly recommend that you use their slicer. It does just seem to work better. I know Lychee has recently been updated, and Lychee now has support for the GK2 as well. But frankly, if you're using their slicer, you're really not going to get that much out of using anything else. So I would recommend using this one. Right, so very quickly, when Uniformation sent us this machine, they also sent us this wash station. It is only a wash station, not a wash and cure. Uniformation do also have a cure station. We didn't get that. Now, look, this is not a bad ultrasonic cleaner. It's not a bad one. It's not my favourite. The main reason is, so this lid, so our lid is actually broken already at the back. So the problem is when this lid goes down, it doesn't seal anything here. There's no rubber seal or pressure seal or anything like that. So the IPA that's in here has a tendency over a couple of days to leave. And where it takes up residence is inside of my lungs. Now, I should not have to worry about being drunk by the time, or poisoned when I get into my car to drive to work in the morning. This does create within it a bit of an issue. So what you have to do is there is a hose at the back and a tap, and whenever you're not using it, really you should probably drain it and not store your IPA in here. The second issue is that this tank takes 7 litres. That's a lot of IPA. Most IPA that you can buy in a 5-litre jug, which means that you're buying 2 5-litre jugs and you're having to change them whilst you're doing this. So if you're emptying this, you either need a 10-litre jug that you can sort of pour everything into, or you know, or you need 2 5 litres and you've got to play about with trying to drain it all. The ultrasonic side of it works really well. There is a cage in here, so if you don't want to use this with the printer, you don't have to. You can use this with other printers as well. And all that you would, but if you do use it with this printer, all you do is you unclip your build plate, and then this build plate just docks straight in the top of this machine. Obviously, you then cannot close the lid. You run the ultrasonic cleaner, you can then remove your prints and they'll fall into the little basket, and then you can go through and do that. So this build plate is really the only build plate that will fit into this like that. Other than that, you're scraping off your prints and you're plopping them in there. There is a cage inside. The cage is removable. As I say, it's fine. It does its job. I wish that there was a rubber seal around this, and when I closed this lid, I could pull a little catch down or do like a Tupperware lid thing, and I was able to seal it so I could leave my IPA in there for as long as I wanted to. I can't do that. As well, obviously, the hinges on the back of this are a little bit flimsy, so you do have to be a little bit careful with it. I'm a ham-fisted person, so I've already managed to rip out one of the sides of that that hinge. So let's get into print quality. So as you saw with the slicer, there are options when it comes to slicers. So you can use Chitubox, or you can use their slicer, which is just called Slicer. It's basically Prusa Slicer, as we went through before. I will be honest and say that I had to play about for a while to get my support settings right. There are a couple of models in here that you'll see that there is actually a little bit of support scarring, because the stock settings that you get, they're not perfect. But this is an 8K printer. All these models are printed at a 0.03 layer height, and I'm very, very happy with how they all came out. I've obviously done a mixture of miniatures, and then we've got a Thor model that we're doing as well, and I did the majority of Thor on there. It smashed through all of them, right? There is a Chitubox profile. The problem with the Chitubox profile is the dimensions aren't actually correct. You have to use the profile that's on the USB stick that you get with the machine. And I found Chitubox quite a lot slower. And frankly, I got better results when I was using their slicer. Their slicer is really easy to use. It's basically Prusa Slicer, as you've already seen. So let's take a look at some of the models. Okay, so let's start with some of the bigger stuff. So obviously we start off with this. This is the Thor armor and the torso. So hollowed this model out to a 2mm wall width, and it came out really, really nicely. We've obviously got this head. So when I did Green Goblin from Wicked, Green Goblin has two heads. It has a helmeted head and the Willem Dafoe head, and I stuck with a Willem Dafoe one, so there's that. But again, came out really, really nicely. Managed to get those supports working really well by the end of this, so that was really good. We have the legs here, so they join together really quite nicely. You can see there, and again, really nice quality, really nice surface finish. And once I tweaked those support settings, just get that to focus, there we go. Once I tweaked those support settings, I really wasn't worrying about sort of surface scarring or anything like that. So then we move into sort of a bit more miniature territory. So this is a, out of focus, there we go. This is a bust of a ice goblin. So to be clear, this arm is actually separate, it didn't not print. You can see on here all of the skulls, the face, the teeth. There we go, let's just see if we can. There we go. So you can see that that came out really, really nicely. These are all like the icicles that came out on the back, so that's really detailed. We tried doing this bust again. We had some more of this sort of flesh tone resin left over, so we wanted to give it another go. Again, came out really, really clean, really, really nice. This was one of the ones that we did at the beginning when we first started printing with the machine, and you can actually see on the back there. Come on. There we go. You can see on the back there that this is the support scarring that we were getting to begin with. As I say, we tweaked the printer in the settings and we've managed to get that working. So this is the head of Thor. Again, you can see how well all of these hairs and everything have come out. Really, really nice print there. We start going into a miniature territory where we've got this little owl bear. As you can see, all the individual claws came out really, really nicely. The fur came out really nicely. All of this is, again, really delicate stuff. And then we came to the smallest model that we tried, which is this little guy here. There we go. So this little guy here, and again, came out really, really nicely. So we'll pop up some close-up pictures of this one because it's a little difficult for it to come out on camera, but he came out beautifully as well. This is part of the samurai arm that we're doing. So we're doing this really cool samurai from CS Sculpts, and again, there we go, really detailed surfaces that needed to come out perfectly, and they just came out amazing. And then last but not least, we'll just show this is Thor's hammer. So Thor's hammer came out really, really nice, detail on the hammer. And then this part here was incredibly thin, like this is really, really thin here, and it just absolutely smashed it. So well done on that. So, closing thoughts. This is the easiest to use and best thought out resin printer that we've had on this channel. I'm not saying it's the best and easiest to use on the market. What I'm saying is, of the machines that I have used, this is the best, easiest to use, most thought out, with the most complete feature set of any machine that I've used. Now, to be clear, you're paying a premium for that. 750 odd pound is not nothing, right? Big boy money. But there is a reality that if you want to have a machine that just isn't going to let you down and makes so much sense when you're using it, this is the machine for you. Should you buy the wash station? That's a slightly more complicated question. So I personally have a limited amount of space in my workshop. Therefore, what I want to see are wash and cure stations. I don't want to have 3 machines for my workflow, right? I want to have a sealed IPA unit that I can take out and then place my model in to do curing. I cannot do that with this. I'd have to buy another machine that would then also be my cure station. If you need a good wash station, this is a good wash station. It does what it needs to, but bear in mind, you're more than likely going to be draining this in between your prints to make sure that all of your IPA doesn't just go into the atmosphere and you breathe it in. And other than that, it does work really well. I mean, it cleans the prints really nicely. It does the ultrasonic part really nicely. It is actually really easy to drain thanks to this tube at the back. And again, it's contextually well thought out. I just would have liked to have seen that this lid's sealed to keep the IPA in and stop it from vaporizing and going off. So I personally probably wouldn't buy this one, mainly because I would buy a wash and cure station, something like the Anycubic one or the Nova 3D one or something like that. I would buy an all-in-one. If you've got some space and you want to have a separate wash station and a separate cure station, then this is an okay one and you should absolutely get it. You can get a discount by buying these 2 as a bundle. It's cool that if you buy this, you can take the build plate off of this and just sort of dock it in that straight away without having to scrape your prints off or anything like that. Because it's an ultrasonic bath, I actually found that if I put my prints in here straight from it, when you turned the ultrasonic bath on, most of my prints actually just fell off of the build plate and were caught in the little basket, so that they were nice and easy to take off, so I wasn't scraping at my build surface. So if you're buying this machine, I'd say that this probably makes a bit of sense for you, but I would like to see a wash and curing station all in one. So let's give it the score. This machine, for me, gets a 10 out of 10. Gets a 10 out of 10. There's nothing about this machine that I don't like. There's nothing about it that I don't like. Obviously, we do bigger models, so the 10.3-inch screen is something that we struggle with sometimes, and we end up using the M3 Max for some of our bigger stuff. But that's our very personal use case, and it's because of the size we do our models, not because of the limitations of this machine. I would give this as a resin printer a 10 out of 10. It is the best resin printer we have used with the highest feature set. The price point is a bit high, but I think it's well worth it. The wash station, I'd give that a 6 out of 10. It does the job. It will do the job. It's not the one that I would pick for my workflow. So 10 out of 10 for the machine, 6 out of 10 for the wash station. And that's it. So thanks very much for joining us, guys and dolls. Don't forget to catch us on the next one. Do not forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next video. See you later.